Hi everyone, working today to finish off the Pink Monster journal, and so I've got to the stage now, as I explained in the last video, where you can see that I've stitched my 7 signatures. So there was 4 signatures and 3 feature pages. I've stitched them in, and I've as I explained, you can see stitching and then a fold, stitching, a fold, stitching, a fold. And that's what makes this journal so flexible. So it's a really lovely spine. It just flexes and folds as I want it. So my next stage is I'm going to cover this with fabric, and then I'll add my front and back cover. What I did with the last journal that I used this method on, this is covered in fabric, and you can see the stitching through the fabric, which I really like on this grungy journal. But I'm going to try another method today, just using, so I have this fabric, and once the fabric gets wet it tends to become quite see-through. So I'm going to try and paste this paper on first and then the fabric on top, just to see if I can make this fabric a bit more of a feature. And so what I've got is I've emptied some fabric glue just into a container, and what I'm going to do is paint the glue onto this and then stick the paper on and then glue the fabric on top. So here is the paper glued on, and what I'm doing is I'm just running my thumb, not on the back of my thumb, in between all of the ridges that are in the cover, and just making certain that that is all adhered. And in case any glue might seep out when you're doing that, I'm just going between and making sure I'm getting any excess glue off. So that's the paper stage, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to adhere the fabric onto that paper. The fabric is partly on, and I just thought it might be helpful just to show. I'm just sort of pushing into all the ridges with that and just doing a section at a time and painting the glue on. I've got just a paintbrush here and just trying to get right up to the very edges and keeping it as a smooth application so that there's no lumps and bumps, not too much glue anywhere, and just making certain that I get the glue to cover the entire spine. And this glue does go pretty tacky quite quickly, so it makes it helpful. So just a really smooth application of glue, and then I'm just sort of running my fingers along to smooth the fabric into that. And you can see that when I show you the spine that I'm just sort of pushing that in and checking both ends to make sure that there's no excess glue, and if there is, just get that off quickly. And just making certain that that fabric is completely in contact with the layer of paper below it. So that's the fabric covering that spine piece. And just double check top and bottom that everything is in contact right up to the very top, and that there's no excess glue anywhere. Just check in between each of the signatures. And so that's done. That's ready to just allow that to dry completely. So my fabric spine is now dry, and I've cut out a front and back cover just from an old box of dog food, and I've just made them to fit so that they will, where that inside crease is, they will sit against that, and I've made them big enough to cover nearly everything that's sticking out of the journal, the tabs and tags. And so I've got 2 of those ready to cover, and then I printed out a front and back cover from the Print Collection kit, and this will be the inside cover. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to glue all over this and cover these 2 front covers, and then glue them in. Once they're covered in paper, glue them into place there like that, and then I'll put the lining page and cover the inside of the cover, so you'll just see a little bit of the outside cover peeking around. So here are the 2 covers. So there's the front cover and the back cover, and they're just the plain cardboard at the moment, and I'm going to place glue on the top of this fabric flap, and then line the journal up, the cover up. So I'm sort of going to keep everything square and then line that cover up, making certain that it's level across this seam here, and that everything in the journal is sitting nice and straight. So I'm using the lines on my board to help me with the signatures, so I can just see that line here, keep that signature nice and straight, and then I can keep the cover nice and straight as well. And again, I'm just using the line on my board to make sure that everything is level, and flipping the signatures backwards and forwards so that's all nice and level that way. And just I'm pushing the signature down, and then I'm going to burnish inside that final crease, just to make certain that everything's sitting nice and flat. Do that on both sides. So I'm pushing it down with this hand and just making certain that that crease is nice and flat. And then opening it up, and it's laying nice and straight along the board here. So that's the front and back cover on, and that just needs a couple of hours. I'm going to leave that to dry really thoroughly, and then all that will be left to do will be to line the inside of the journal here, and I've got the music paper that's going to sit inside there and line that. If you wanted to, this is quite thick. If you wanted to, you could use just a thin piece of cardboard and cover that with the music paper, just to so you haven't got a bump in the cover. And I'll do that on both the front and the back, but I'm going to leave that dry for a couple of hours first.